later this evening after we complete the press conference here. Also, as has been released, the FBI's National Threat Operations Center has received anonymous tips in the past of online threats to commit school violence or school shootings at an undetermined location and time. The FBI referred this information to the Jackson County Sheriff's Office for action. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office identified and located Gray, who is our suspect in this case. They conducted an investigation at that time, and there was no probable cause for arrest or to take any additional law enforcement action. This is not recent, this is in the past, but we wanted to bring that to your attention because we are pursuing that, working with the FBI on that, and any connection to that incident that could be connected to today's incident as well. Also, we're also aware of some previous contacts that the Department of Family and Children Services in the area had with the suspect and his family, and we are pursuing that avenue as well too, to see if that has any connection with today's incident. Let me stress again, as we have many times, that this is still a very fluid investigation. It is still very active. We will have agents and there will be law enforcement personnel that will be pursuing investigative leads and collecting evidence throughout the night and into much of tomorrow, I would anticipate as well. We again ask for your patience in that. This is a criminal investigation, and we're going to treat it like that. So I apologize ahead of time if we don't answer some of the questions that you may ask, so please understand. I also want to bring note to one very special thing that we do not need to forget about here, is we have heroes in our midst. We've talked about our law enforcement personnel, our fire, our EMS. Those that are deceased are heroes in my book. Those that are in the hospital recovering right now are heroes in my book. But also the heroes that we need to remember is our faculty and staff here at this school. They acted admirably. They were heroes in the actions that they took. The protocols that this school and this system activated today prevented this from being a much larger tragedy than what we had here today. So I want to recognize them as heroes, because they are. And continue with our thoughts and prayers, as has been mentioned, for the families that were lost here today, those that were lost here today, those that are recovering in the hospital, and obviously those that were affected directly by this tragedy here at the school and all of the community of Barrow County. We need to continue to have them in our thoughts and prayers.
Thank you for doing another one of these again. Can you tell us, by chance, since he's being charged as an adult, will he be in court tomorrow? Will there be a first court appearance? Will he be booked tonight? Does that happen?
He will be booked tonight. I'm not sure of the court appearance, but it will be within a reasonable amount of time.
Is there anything that you can share to us about the weapon that was used, by chance?
The weapon that was used in this was an AR platform style weapon.
So how did Mr. Gray get the gun into this?
We're still investigating that aspect of it.
Did he go out of the classroom, get the gun, and come back? We've heard some of that from some students.
We're still trying to clarify a lot of the timeline from the time that he got here to school today until the incident took place.
And last one from me. I mean, so often, I know people at home, we always hear something that the FBI has heard something about someone who goes and does one of these tragic events. How can we stop this from happening? Because it feels like this happens every single time there's a school shooting that we've heard that there was a prior threat or there's prior knowledge. When lives are at stake, how can we stop this from happening?
Well, there's a variety of ways, in my personal opinion. Community involvement, what our school system is doing here to ensure that. Whether we'll be able to stop it completely one day or not, I don't know. Those are decisions that each individual is making on their own to do this. But again, I go back to what I said earlier about the heroes here that prevented things from being a lot worse today. But we've got to take action within our own communities, take care of each other, be aware of our surroundings and what's going on in our community.
Dr. Hosey, the family last year, and they found hunting rifles in the family home. Was an AR platform weapon among those weapons that were in the home during that interview?
Again, that's part of a lot of the things that we're trying to clarify within the investigation. Again, we're very early.
As a parent situation, was it from a 911 call from a faculty or staff member or from a student? Can you just expand on that since they got here within minutes?
Could you also expand on why it was a female faculty member walking around looking for the student minutes before he shot up the school?
No.
Can clarify that.
I'll let Director
Why
Hosey
the school
answer that question.
resource officer didn't approach him.
Ma'am, let's get this question right here, and then we'll come
You
back
asked
to
how was
Well,
they notified?
Yeah, we discussed today, heard earlier, law enforcement here within several minutes. So we're just curious how the notification went through. Did 911 hear about it from a student, or was it a faculty that made that call alerting law enforcement?
All of our teachers are armed with a form of an ID called Centegix. And Centegix alarms us and alerts the law enforcement office after buttons are pressed on an ID, and it alerts us that there is an active situation at the school for whatever reason, and that was pressed. And we've had that about a week now.
And we've heard stories of students actually pulling other students while they're in the hallway, while all this chaos is happening, while shooting is going on. We've heard stories about students pulling their classmates into the classrooms to get them secure, to get them to safety. What do you think that says about these young folks who are, very 13, 14, 15 years old, that they're looking out for one another like that?
It's admirable. It's like Director Hosey said, we have heroes among us, and those students and teachers that did that today saved a lot of lives. This could have been way worse than what and again, the investigation is still trying to file through that information, but those kids are heroes and brave as well to do that when they hear an active shooter around them.
Sheriff,
Well,
you talked about
let,
the
let me
SRO.
let me get this one question right here. Did you have something else, ma'am?
No, it was me.
Okay.
I was asking, why did the school resource officer not go looking for this kid and approach him? And why they sent a female faculty member to the room, to the algebra room he was in with my daughter, looking for him instead of the school resource officer? Or why the school allowed this boy to come and go from the class all the time. He would go and sign up for the restroom pass, leave the class, and come back sometimes, and sometimes never come back. He has been wandering this school.
With all due respect, ma'am, I think your information is incorrect, and our investigation is going to lead to what we have, and we will be glad to answer your questions once that's done,
I guess victims are lying to me then.
possibly.
Sheriff, what can you tell us about the SROs? You talked about a lot of heroes. You talked about how one of the SROs encountered the shooter. What can you tell us about them, who they are, how long they've been working here, and what they did today?
Both of the SROs that are here at these high schools, at all of my high schools, I have two there. Both of the SROs, to include a third one, was here today, not for any other reason other than to help and assist today. They're the true heroes as well. They were actively looking. They had an alert, I guess, if you will, and when they interjected, or when this shooting began, they interacted with the shooter, Mr. Gray, and as soon as they made contact with him, he gave up immediately.
Can you share these officers' names?
Not at this time, I'd rather not.
Well, where is the shooter right now? You said in custody.
The shooter is in custody at the Bexar County Detention Center because he is a juvenile. He's being booked in, and he will be transported to RYDC.
Were officials or school administrators tipped off by a threat here before the shooting happened?
I'm not aware of that at this time.
Sheriff or Director, can you say the condition on those injured that were taken to the hospital? Have you got any updates on how they're doing?
All of our victims that are at the hospital are going to make it and going to recover well, as we've been told, and we don't expect any more fatalities at this time.
Last question.
Has there been any shooting or tragedy to this scale inside a Georgia school that you're aware of? Can you speak to that?
I can't speak to that, no.
Can you put this in perspective for us then? What today has meant for law enforcement, for students, all of those affected?
Tragic. When someone preys on kids, it's tragic. Like I said earlier, hate is not going to prevail in our county, and hate's not going to prevail in our state. And pure evil did what happened today. That's all I can tell you. I want to continue to say that. I'm proud of the men and women behind me. I'm proud of the women that stood beside me. I'm proud of the men and women who protected these kids. I'm proud of this staff. I'm proud of this community. And I just ask for prayers. Thank you.
Is there any more your office can do to prevent shootings like this?
Well, look, we've done a tremendous amount on school safety, but today is not the day for politics or policy. Today is the day for an investigation to mourn these precious Georgians that we have lost, to thank the first responders that went, into the line of fire, the school staff, superintendent, the principal, and others that are just trying to hold this community together. That's what we need to be focused on right now. We also had a tragic loss of a firefighter in Greene County earlier today before this event happened, with an explosion that killed the life of a first responder that, again, was running in to danger when many people were trying to run out. And that's what the focus needs to be on tonight. I would ask everybody to continue to keep this community, these victims, and these educators and these men and women in law enforcement in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor.
I just want to thank everyone for their patience and taking the time to cover this. We ask that you continue to follow the GBI for updates. As we said earlier, we're going to continue to provide updates. It's very important that we get this information out. But right now, we really want to focus on our victims, and you can, as I said earlier, continue to follow us as we provide additional updates. Thank you.
The spellings of those victims' names.
Yes, I will.
Hey,
Thank
when
you.
you post cities of residence for the adults, it's awful.
Okay, I'm going to get that. I'm going to.
They say that it is in no connection whatsoever to an earlier phone call that was made to the district. They did not identify what time it was, but it was before the shooting. Said there was a call pertaining to a threat. It was investigated by police and by the district and deemed to not be a threat. But hours later, 2 students were killed, 2 teachers.
And we also got an update from the FBI earlier tonight. This was touched on in this news conference, but a lot of people out here at the scene talking about how the FBI in May of 2023 investigated this same suspect from today because of alleged online threats of a possible school shooting. This was forwarded to the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. The FBI was involved. They deemed it not to be serious enough to go any further, but certainly raising a lot of questions here tonight.
And they also said, according to the GBI, that the Department of Children's Services had checked in with Colt Gray's family, the 14-year-old suspected shooter, and they're trying to see if there's any potential tie between the Department of Children's Services and what happened at Appalachia High School today.
Most of the people asking those questions, members of the media, but as you may have heard, there was a woman asking questions there to the governor and then to law enforcement asking about her daughter. And I know, Sean, you spoke with her just a few minutes before that news conference.
We're going to have an exclusive report tonight at 11, and she shares her daughter was in the classroom with Colt Gray when he walked out, allegedly, they suspect he went to the bathroom, tried to come back to the classroom, but the class has automatic locked doors, which prevented him from being able to get access to that classroom. A student went to go open the door for him and saw what appeared to be a gun and then pushed back. And at that point, that is when she says Colt Gray, the 14-year-old suspected shooter, tried to get into the classroom, could not get in, so the classroom that was adjacent to their classroom, he began to shoot in there. And according to the police, we just heard from the press conference, the type of weapon that he used was an AR flat-styled weapon. We have a lot more questions about that. I'm not sure what kind of weapon that is.
Sure, and those questions will continue, and so we will continue to be out here. We have a team of reporters joining us out here, and we will be bringing you live coverage from Appalachia High School tonight at 10 and 11. We will be updating you if there's new information before then, but we'll see you otherwise at 10 and 11.
Back to you guys.
We just got the latest information from Appalachia High School. We heard from the GBI. We heard from Governor Brian Kemp. Our station, Atlanta News First, was covering that as well. And we did learn the names of the 4 victims that were killed in this shooting. Again, Mason Thurmahorn, Christian Anglo were the 2 students, and then 2 teachers as well, Richard Aspinwell, Christina Emery. We're going to have more coverage. You can always head to Atlanta News First to see any latest updates, or join us tomorrow morning for more right here on Local News Live. For now, let's get back to programming that is already in progress.
You coming into our home was one of the greatest rewards we could have ever had.
You know, it took 20 years and I
.23 inches and rising. At Chamblee, it was mostly cloudy. The temperature was 75. At Marietta, it was mostly cloudy and 76. Wind east at 5. At Mableton, it was mostly cloudy and 78. Wind east at 9. At Peachtree City, it was mostly cloudy and 75. Wind variable at 3. At Lawrenceville, it was mostly cloudy and 73, wind northeast at 7. At Cartersville, it was cloudy and 75, wind variable at 6. At Kennesaw, it was cloudy and 75, wind east at 9. At Hampton, it was mostly cloudy and 73, wind northeast at 5. At Covington, it was mostly cloudy and 73, wind northeast at 5. At Monroe, it was mostly cloudy and 72, wind calm. Elsewhere around the region, at Athens, it was cloudy and 73, wind northeast at 8. At Gainesville, it was mostly cloudy and 72, wind east at 8. At Macon, it was mostly cloudy and 78, wind east at 8. At Columbus, it was mostly cloudy and 82, wind east at 7. At Birmingham, it was cloudy and 83, wind east at 5. At Rome, it was cloudy and 77, wind east at 3. At Chattanooga, it was
and now
cloudy
you're having to
and
go
81,
back and
wind
say, hey, this was not the shooter. This is very common with a lot of investigations, and why law enforcement is so careful and meters out this information so that they can 100% confirm its accuracy, so that we don't have these situations. And as far as the timeline's concerned, that's what's going to be fleshed out first here in the next coming days and weeks, is the to the second timeline of exactly how this happened, exactly what happened, and how everyone reacted, and how that we can learn from this in the future and react better and train better and establish better protocols.
Josh, back to the weapon though. This AR style, platform style weapon that was used here, and the provenance of the weapon is still an outstanding question. We don't know where he got it. But we do know in that interaction in May of last year, when agents interviewed both Colt Gray and his father about threats Gray was making online in the form of photographs of weapons, the father said in that interview that they essentially kept hunting rifles in the home here. Now, from what I understand, I don't know Georgia state law, but if you're 14 years old, you cannot buy an AR-15 style rifle, can you?
No, you can't buy a firearm at all, anywhere.
Right. Okay, but to my point there about the provenance of the weapon, we don't want to speculate. And usually is the case in these mass school shootings that whoever carries out rampages to this effect, they obtain and acquire the weapon that they use very, very close to when they carry out the rampage. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's fairly accurate. And most of the times it's legally obtained. When I say legally obtained, the firearms not stolen. It's generally belongs to a family member or someone that they know. And there's no reason to believe that, that firearm was illegally obtained, aside from the fact that a minor is now possessing it without consent from that adult. But, going to the FBI statement that he only had hunting weapons, in most places, an AR pattern rifle is considered a hunting weapon. And there's a lot of hunters that use that as their primary hunting rifle. So it may very well have been part of that, that cachet that was originally photographed.
Josh, we got to go. Before we do, final thoughts here. What more do you need to know and want to know?
Really, it's going to be what the response was during that initial call this morning, that threat, and really how a student was able to get a weapon of that size into the school. And those questions are going to be the biggest ones to be answered moving.
All right, Josh Gerard, as always, actually, this was your first time debut here on Live Now, but we appreciate your insight. We'll definitely be speaking again.
Absolutely. Thanks.
All right, in the meantime here, we're going to take a quick commercial break. Let's recap. These are the facts out of the latest press conference that we now know, that there is no evidence of other shooters and or accomplices. There is no list of schools being targeted thus far. There was another call to a local high school today. They determined there was no threat to that high school. Both students, of course, killed in this were 14 years old. We are confirming the names and the spellings. You heard them outline the names there. We want to make sure we get the spellings and the pronunciations right because we're going to respect these victims here. Also, that, of course, this remains an active investigation. The suspect will be booked tonight. No word there on his first court appearance or court date. And, of course, an AR platform-style weapon was used. We learned authorities, though, don't expect any more fatalities. Remember, there were multiple people injured in this. At least 9 people taken to the hospital for various injuries. And we heard there from the Barrow County Sheriff in Georgia saying as much. They do not expect any more fatalities in relation to this mass shooting rampage there at Appalachia High School just today. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
What if we never started Gunner, or bought our first work van, or believed in the American dream? What if we never decided to install our first roof, or our second, or our 5,000th? What if we never felt the need to put the customer first? Would we have ever earned all of these awards, or felt the satisfaction of giving a family a new roof over their head, or started Gunner Cares to support our heroes? And best of all, we're just getting started.
And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. It's the bottom of the hour here, 6:30 on the West Coast, 9:30 there in Winder, Georgia, as we continue to follow the shooting today at Appalachia High School. 2 students, 2 14-year-olds shot and killed today, 2 teachers shot and killed today. A 14-year-old suspect, Colt Gray is his name. Now, in custody. We want to bring into the conversation a friend of the program, someone who has been so impacted by the scourge of gun violence, and that, of course, is Tony Montalto, who lost his daughter Gina at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida on Valentine's Day 2018. He joins me. Tony, thanks for being with us here, and I know this is particularly difficult for you. When news of recent mass shootings at schools in particular cross your news feed, the alerts come up on your phone, what goes through your mind?
Well, it's very upsetting. Of course, it brings me right back to February 14th of 2018 when we found out that our beautiful daughter Gina was murdered at her school. I feel for the families of the victims, for the parents who sent their child to school expecting them to come home, or from the spouses who sent their family members to work and then they didn't return home. It's a terrible thing, and when these things happen, immediately our thoughts go to them.
You know, weirdly, there's a rubric to cover these types of horrible events for journalists. There's no playbook for family members and friends and loved ones of the victims who aren't going to be coming home. Where do you even start?
Well, I think as a victim, you have to remember to just try and breathe. That was very difficult early on, and I know those families are missing their loved ones tonight and wondering how this happened. And you know, that's one of the reasons why we formed Stand with Parkland, the National Association of Families for Safe Schools. Why we have you know, the 5 questions every family should ask as the school year begins on our website at standwithparkland.org, because we know that there's things that can be done. Sadly, it's too late for these folks at Appalachia High School and their community, but we encourage everybody else to look at those, to look at how we can come together and find some pragmatic solutions rather than continuing the same old diatribe of divisive politics when it comes to keeping our students and our teachers safe.
And of course, in the wake of these, almost instantaneously, they tend to become politicized. You heard there Georgia Governor Brian Kemp in the latest press conference we just aired live saying that can wait for another day here. But Tony, I wanted to ask, because our viewers know, you know well, that Nicholas Cruz was very well known, was very well documented, his problems at that school at the time. When we are learning more about the shooter in this, 14-year-old Colt Gray, and we just learned last May, law enforcement officials interviewed both him and his father after threats were made about an unspecified location and or time to commit a school shooting. That was last May. And so when you hear a fact like that and you listen and talk about the warning signs that teachers, parents, friends, siblings need to look out for at the start of this school season, what do you think can be done to make sure those warning signs are caught?
I think, first of all, people have to familiarize themselves with that. And on standwithparkland.org, on our resources page, we have the Protecting America's Schools report that was put out by the National Threat Assessment Center. And that talks about the concerning behaviors that people should notice. Additionally, we worked with both the Secret Service and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Administration as they put out their report on creating a bystander reporting toolkit, right? Which is what people can use to report threats that they see. Often the things you see or the concerns aren't really something you can call 911 about. That's why it's important to be aware of the reporting systems that are available in your school district. An older person like me might pick up the phone and dial an 800 number. Kids today, we know they don't do much without the phone in their hands. So that's a mechanism. Having a reporting app is something that's so important for school districts. As a matter of fact, Stand with Parkland is using part of a federal grant we got to offer schools a reporting system for free for the next 2 years. We use the Safer Watch program in that grant, and we think it's so valuable. That's available at standwithparkland.org on our grants page.
So if your school doesn't have something like that, please look into it. If it does have something, parents, teachers, students, we all need to be familiar with the signs and how to report that.
I mean, Tony, in the year 2024, I mean, this is the 2024-2025 school season. Any school in America, if they don't have any of this in place, if they don't have a plan, are they opening themselves up to something like this? Is this a fact of life now for any school in America, for any school district, that they can be the victim of gun violence like this?
Well, sadly, I'm reminded every time I talk about this that Parkland was the safest city in the state of Florida just 2 days before the shooting. So yes, it can happen anywhere at any time. That's why we need everyone to be aware. We need to look out for one another. We need to have those personal connections to be a little more concerned about how our neighbors and our classmates are doing. Yeah. This is not to be in anybody's business, but it's about community. And sometimes we see that even showing concern for someone and asking the simplest of questions will help break that pathway to violence. Yeah. This is something that is really good for suicide prevention. And on our resources page, we have the Columbia Protocol. And that's an app on the cell phones now that you can use. And it's 6 simple questions that you can ask someone if they look like they're troubled. And the app will walk you through it and give you answers to what you should do, depending on the answers you hear. It's this personal connection that is really important.
Tony, just lastly, and I know the Parkland families, so to speak, they're all very close, and they all use each other to get through this moment. And it's been, 6 years since Parkland. Is that going to happen now in Georgia here in Winder, there at the Appalachia High School community, that those impacted by this, they will use each other to get through it, like you and the Parkland families have done?
Well, I hope they can find a way to find some support. It's, very difficult for the victims' families, and especially, even for the entire community. The problems and the trauma of a school shooting last long after the news reports and the cameras are gone. That's why when we spoke with the White House following the Uvalde shooting, we told them some of the effective things that have worked here in Parkland, such as having a long-term mental health clinic available to the entire community. Here it's called Eagles Haven. But, it's important to provide the children affected by this with every opportunity to learn how to cope with it. It is difficult. Yeah. Another thing that's coming up at the end of the month is on September 25th and 26th, there's the K-12 School Safety Summit, sponsored by schoolsafety.gov and the Federal Clearinghouse of School Safety Best Practices. I encourage everybody to sign up for that and learn about a multitude of things and how you can be involved in preventing these tragedies.
All right, Tony Montalto, we're going to have to leave it at that. We do appreciate your time on this extremely tragic occasion, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right, in the meantime here, we do want to take a quick commercial break. We're still following this story throughout the course of this hour. There are a lot of top headlines to get to. We're going to get to some of those in the next hour, but this story deserves and requires our utmost coverage and attention today, and we'll see you in 2 minutes.
There is a storm coming,
an event like the world has never seen before. The emerging event will have little to do with weather, but more about developing situations that were foreseen many years ago. We have always warned you during severe weather and news events that affected many. Now, Channel 1 Atlanta begins a new series to warn you about what's coming soon and make sure you are prepared. Join us on a new journey, as according to a recent survey, a lot of people believe we are living in the last days. Current news events show us now more than ever. In history, time is setting the stage for the coming storm, a new series, now playing only on Channel 1 Atlanta.
Again, a confirmed tornado on the ground in downtown Conyers. This is a very dangerous and life-threatening weather event. Get into the interior section of your house, away from windows or a basement if you have. And there's the debris right there in the Millstead area near the Rockdale Medical Center. Right.
Christian Angulo, he was a 14-year-old student. Richard Aspinwall was a math teacher, and Christina Ermy was a math teacher. We don't have the ages of the two teachers, of the two adults there, but those are the names of the four victims. We don't have their photos just yet. Of course, that is customary in the wake of these tragic mass shootings, that we learn who these victims are and were. Their lives cut down so randomly, so senselessly, and so much shorter. They just went to school to teach math, to learn, to speak with friends, and they're not coming home tonight. And so just want to make sure we got these names in. Those are their names. If we have any photos of them in the hours and days to come, you'll see who they were. You'll learn about them as well. We also haven't seen just yet a photo of the shooting suspect, that 14-year-old, his name Colt Gray. We're told that he is going to be booked tonight at a regional youth detention center in Barrow County at the Barrow County Jail. So wanted to make sure we got all that in there. Let's take it back, though. Let's let you listen into how so many individuals, elected leaders, responded to the shooting today. It was a key feature at the White House briefing. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre starting the briefing off, saying that President Biden had been briefed on the shooting. Let's watch.
So this week, kids across the country are heading back to school for the new school year. Today is supposed to be an exciting day for students and parents, but instead, we're seeing yet another horrific shooting. Now, as a parent myself, I know the anxiety that comes with sending your kid out into the world every day, living with the real fear of the worst can happen. So please know that our hearts are with those families in Winder, Georgia, who are forced to face this act of senseless violence. I want to let you know that the president and the vice president have both been briefed, and his administration will continue coordinating with federal, state, and local officials as we receive more information. We're grateful for the brave first responders who are on the scene, and we stand by, we stand ready to provide support as needed. As the president has said time and time again, this is not normal. This is not normal. Students and teachers deserve to know that their schools are safe. They should focus on learning, not lockdowns. While the president and vice president have taken historic action to reduce gun violence, more must be done to keep our schools and communities safe.
We continue to call on Congress to do something, We need universal background checks. We need to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, require safe storage of firearms, invest in violence prevention programs, and pass a national red flag law. Enough is enough. And I cannot say this enough, which is enough is enough. We cannot allow this to happen in our communities. We cannot allow this to happen in our schools. So we have to do everything that we can to keep our children safe, to keep the people who are supposed to protect our children, who are they supposed to learn from, safe. And enough is enough. Congress needs to act. Now, turning to my colleague from NSC, who's here to discuss the latest Biden-Harris administration actions today.
All right, Karine Jean-Pierre at the White House press briefing with that statement on this most recent mass shooting at a school in the country, that enough is enough, calling on Congress to act. Of course, President Biden, his administration, touts and has several times recently the passage of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act that he signed into law. That was, as you know, we covered that extensively here back in 2022 in the wake of the Uvalde mass shooting at Robb Elementary School and the Buffalo supermarket shooting. Remember, those both happened in May of 2022. In the wake of that was this pretty groundbreaking piece of legislation, the first such legislation in a generation addressing gun reforms. And so even though they tout that many, many times, I thought it was interesting there that Karine Jean-Pierre calling on Congress to act yet again. In the meantime here, we do have a live picture there at the White House as well, as we're garnering more reaction to this. President Biden and the First Lady putting out this statement today. I'm going to read it in full. They said this: Jill and I are mourning the deaths of those whose lives were cut short due to more senseless gun violence, and thinking of all of the survivors whose lives are forever changed. What should have been a joyous back-to-school season in Winder, Georgia, has now turned into another horrific reminder of how gun violence continues to tear our communities apart. Students across the country are learning how to duck and cover instead of how to read and write. We cannot continue to accept this as normal. We are closely coordinating with officials at the federal, state, and local level, and are grateful for the first responders who brought the suspect into custody and prevented further loss of life. Ending this gun violence epidemic is personal to me. It's why I signed into law the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the most meaningful gun safety bill in decades, and have announced dozens of gun safety executive actions. I also established the first ever White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention, overseen by Vice President Harris. We've made significant progress, but this crisis requires even more. Biden goes on to say, after decades of inaction, Republicans in Congress must finally say enough is enough and work with Democrats to pass common sense gun safety legislation. We must ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines once again, require safe storage of firearms, enact universal background checks, and end immunity for gun manufacturers. These measures will not bring those who were tragically killed today back, but it will help prevent more tragic gun violence from ripping more families apart. Back out live there to the White House, Vice President Harris on the campaign trail today, speaking there in Portsmouth, New Hampshire to supporters. She started off her comments with reaction to the Georgia shooting. Let's watch.
Words about this tragic shooting that took place this morning in Winder, Georgia. We're still gathering information about what happened, but we know that there were multiple fatalities and injuries. And, you know, our hearts are with all the students, the teachers, and their families, of course. And we are grateful to the first responders and the law enforcement that were on the scene. But this is just a senseless tragedy on top of so many senseless tragedies. And it's just outrageous that every day in our country, in the United States of America, that parents have to send their children to school worried about whether or not their child will come home alive. It's senseless. It is We've got to stop it. And we have to end this epidemic of gun violence in our country once and for all. You know, it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. So we will continue, of course, to send our prayers and our thoughts to the families and all.
All right, that was Vice President Harris today in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, on the campaign trail, saying we don't have to live this way. In the meantime, her opponents, Trump and Vance, also extending their condolences and thoughts today to the community, saying, J.D. Vance in this post on X, that our hearts go out to everyone affected by this despicable violence. Just days into the new school year, we're keeping the victims, their families, and the whole community of Winder, Georgia, in our prayers this evening. Former President Donald Trump also posting on Truth Social, saying this: our hearts are with the victims and loved ones of those affected by the tragic event in Winder, Georgia. These cherished children were taken from us far too soon by a sick and deranged monster. Well, in the meantime, like I said, we have been relying so heavily on our friends down there at Fox 5 in Atlanta. That is our sister and partner station. We're getting some more reporting. Remember, we just brought you the identities, the names of the 4 victims here. Fox 5 Atlanta reporter Brittany Edney has more on who one of those victims was, one of the 14-year-old students. I want to put up this tweet from her. She has a photo saying that family members have confirmed the identity of one of the Appalachia High School students who was killed at the school Wednesday morning. The student has been identified as Mason Schermerhorn. Family members shared those photos with Brittany Edney there. Mason Schermerhorn is the young child in the background there, in the black T-shirt and the glasses. The New York Post also with a photo of 14-year-old Mason Schermerhorn. He was just going to school today. The New York Post has photos of 2 of the other victims, the 2 math teachers. And you see them there, Richard Aspinwall and Christina Ermy there. Their lives ending so senselessly and tragically today at Appalachia High School. We'll be back in just a moment.
Again, a confirmed tornado on the ground in downtown Conyers. This is a very dangerous and life-threatening weather event. Get into the interior section of your house, away from windows or a basement if you have. And there's the debris right there in the Millstead area near the Rockdale Medical Center. Right. Channel 1 Atlanta.
that it would end with an OIS, an officer-involved shooting.
The shooting, less than 1 month into the new school year, led to a chaotic scene. Students rushing to shelter in place in classrooms as officers from multiple law enforcement agencies swarmed the school.
We were going about our day, and then like the first shot you're gonna hear is like pop pop, and then after that like our teacher wants to like spy out the window. It's just like everybody get down, and they can hear like pop 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 pop, like just going off. Schools in the Barrow County school system will be closed the rest of the week as police gather evidence and interview students, faculty, and staff. The FBI and ATF will be assisting with that work.
Priority right now for us within this investigation is to gather all the facts, to make sure that we're accurate with it, because this is a murder investigation.
Authorities say they plan to charge the suspect with murder and try him as an adult. In Winder, Georgia, Steve Harrigan, Fox News.
Steve, thanks so much. In the meantime, remember, we did hear from law enforcement at the latest press conference that there will be no more updates tonight. We will be on the lookout from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation if there are any more updates in the form of, say, statements and or press releases, but nothing more on camera for the duration of the evening here. This is what we know from that latest press conference, that there is no evidence of other shooters and or accomplices, that there was not a list of schools being targeted at the moment, that there was another call to a local high school today. They determined law enforcement, no threat was active to that other high school. We still don't know who made that call. Also, we know both students killed were 14 years of age. We brought you one of their images, Mason Schermerhorn, and also the name of the other 14-year-old as well. Also, remember, this is an active crime scene investigation all around the high school. Police tape still up, law enforcement vehicles still on the scene. And remember, the suspect is going to be booked tonight. We don't know when he will appear in court next. We do know he will be tried as an adult there. He used an AR platform-style weapon. And, of course, we did hear this glimmer of good news in all of this tragedy, somewhat of a silver lining, that authorities do not expect those who were taken to the hospital with injuries. They, remember, those injured were all suffering from gunshot wounds. They do not expect any more fatalities with those who are injured. So, not... news broadcast there. Also, more details.
Fox 5 News at 10 starts right now.
The Barrow County community shaken to the core by a deadly school shooting.
I heard gunshots. I'm like, is that actual gunshots or what?
4 dead and 9 others wounded after police say a student opened fire.
I see everybody getting up crying. I'm asking everybody, like, is this real? Is this a drill?
As police look for answers, the Winder community comes together in a time of crisis.
It's nice to see that there's a sense of community still here and that we can all come together for each other.
And that is where we begin tonight on Fox 5 News at 10. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Russ Spencer.
I'm Courtney Bryant. The GBI says 2 students and 2 teachers were killed in this morning's shooting at Appalachia High School. We now know the identities of the victims.
14-year-old student Mason Schermerhorn, 14-year-old student Christian Angelo,
and football coach and math teacher Richard Aspinwall and math teacher Christina Irami.
Investigators say 14-year-old Colt Gray surrendered to law enforcement after officers arrived just minutes later. We have team coverage in Barrow County tonight. Denise Dillon is at the home of the suspect.
Joy Dukes is at Jug Tavern Park, where hundreds mourn the victims tonight. But we begin with Brittany Edney, who is outside the school with the latest on the investigation. Brittany?
Courtney, Russ, these students have been through a lot, from seeing fellow classmates and faculty shot to then having to pass bodies laying on the floor covered in piles of blood. It has been an extremely violent and traumatic day for them. Just in the past hour, we received an update from law enforcement. Governor Brian Kemp was also there, and he says that this community is going to get any and all resources needed during this time.
When someone preys on kids, it's tragic. Like I said earlier, hate is not going to prevail in our county, and hate's not going to prevail in our state. And pure evil did what happened today. That's all I can tell you. I want to continue to say that.
This hits home for us. Being from Athens, just down the road, Marty and I, having a daughter that taught first grade just a few years ago, this is everybody's worst nightmare.
New details from law enforcement also include confirmation that they have no evidence at all that there were an additional shooter. They also say that there is no evidence that there was any type of list of schools that could have been targeted today. The suspect, 14-year-old Colt Gray, is currently being held in the Barrow County Jail. We also spoke this evening with a friend of one of the victims, Christian, whom he says he has known since middle school, and he shares with us tonight what his friend meant to him.
I was just like, what's going on? And then I checked the family group chat, and then there's my sister saying that there's a shooting at Appalachia, and that's how I just was like, this isn't real, this can't be happening. And so I started asking other people if it was true that he had passed away, because I just wanted to know. I was in denial, because you would never believe that somebody that you knew would pass away just like that.
We do have an update on the victims that were transported to area hospitals for their injuries that they sustained at the shooting today. We're told that the patients who were taken to NGMC's Barrow and Brazelton locations, we're told that they have all been released. And there's also a patient at the Gainesville location. They are still actually there, but in stable condition. We're also waiting right now on an update on a victim who was taken to the Children's Hospital location in Atlanta. Of course, we'll continue to have more information as it becomes available regarding what happened and details from law enforcement in the next hour. But for now, reporting live, Brittany Edney, Fox 5 News.
Brittany, thanks. Within a couple of hours of the shooting, state and federal agents surrounded the home of the suspected shooter, Colt Gray.
Well, Fox 5's Denise Dillon is live outside that Winder home tonight. Denise, police were there well into the evening.
They certainly were. We've seen the GBI, the ATF, other law enforcement agencies going in and out of this home throughout the evening, searching for anything that could tell them more about the shooting and what may have led up to it. They're looking for guns, weapons, likely going through computers, cell phones, especially looking at Colt Gray's social media accounts. Now, we have found out more about Gray from the FBI, who says that in May of 2023, the FBI received several anonymous tips about online threats, which included photos of guns, of a school shooting at an unidentified location and time. The FBI determined that these threats originated in Georgia. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office launched an investigation which led them to Colt Gray, who was 13 at the time. Remember, this was last year. Now, they determined that there was no probable cause for an arrest at that time. One of the neighbors told me the family has lived in this home just across the Winder line in the town of Bethlehem for about 2 years. She said sometime after 11 this morning, right after learning the schools were on lockdown, she saw a massive police presence.
The police presence and the SWAT, they were flying down the road. I know 50 cars plus, just coming fast, jumping out of cars, full armor, guns in hand, surrounding the house. I was in shock. I'm like, there's just no way. I just couldn't wrap my head around it that this is really what's been going on in the news is actually the guys across the street or lived across the street. So yeah, I mean, it's hit us hard emotionally, especially my grandsons. They have a lot of friends at Appalachia, and just, I don't know. My heart just goes out to everybody.
And Christine Ridings told me that she would occasionally see the dad and 2 younger children at the house, but she never even knew a teen boy lived here. That is until this morning when she saw him get on the bus right here for the very first time. Reporting live in Barrow County, Denise Dillon, Fox 5 News.
Yeah, still some unanswered questions about the extent to which he was on law enforcement radar. Denise, thanks so much. Today's tragic shooting has led to an outpouring of community support.
More than 200 people gathered earlier tonight at Jug Tavern Park in Winder for a community vigil. Fox 5's Joy Dukes attended that event and joins us there live. Joy, a lot of emotion tonight.
Yeah, Courtney Russ, tears were flowing here at the site of this community prayer vigil where hundreds of people gathered in grief over the school shooting that killed 4 people and injured 9 others. Now, hearts were heavy as city leaders spoke to the crowd of people who, in one way or another, were impacted by this senseless tragedy. Now, as we just shared at the top of the newscast, GBI officials did confirm the names of the victims that these people knew as friends and neighbors. And we spoke with the football player who is one of the victim's coaches. We spoke with the victim, his student's name is Isaiah Hooks. We talked to him about his coach, Richard Aspinwall. He is one of the 4 victims who was unfortunately killed in this senseless tragedy. About just the horror of it all, and certainly the fact that he and his other teammates will never get to experience another practice with their coach and another moment with him to really just share, and that they were extremely close.
Because it's just so hard to think that somebody that you spent so much time with, because this is my 2nd year with Coach, but spending so much time, you felt like family, basically. So turning around and knowing that he's not going to be there, it was kind of just like, it hit hard because none of us wanted to believe it.
Many of the students here we spoke with say they are still reeling from this horrific situation. And the resounding message here tonight, though, was certainly one of hope. And it was also one of honesty about the fact that a lot of people who were impacted by this tragedy, their lives will never be the same. They have walked away from this situation. Even though they are alive to tell the story, they are not the same. And that something in them has changed. But they did say that the message here is unity and that people are leaning on one another during this difficult time. And we've also noticed several GoFundMe accounts being created to help the victims in this situation. You can find more information on that by heading over to the Fox 5 Atlanta News app or heading over to our website. That's the latest here live in Winder. Joy Dukes, Fox 5 News.
Yeah, it's all too fresh for so many people. This all happening just in the last 12 hours or less. Joy, thanks. Buford High football coach Brandon Gill also shared a photo of Coach Aspinwall. We'll share that with you when we get a hold of it.
Stay with us for continuing coverage of this breaking story. We'll have the latest details on air and on fox5atlanta.com and our Fox 5 Atlanta News app.
All right, in the meantime, let's talk about the weather tonight. It turned out to be a pretty cool evening out there.
Another beautiful day in September, David.
We found temperatures down below the average here for the first week of September. Now, we had sunshine today. We've got the clouds kind of rolling back in here tonight, but we don't have the humidity. Look how dry it is. That dew point's still in the mid-50s upon further review. We did hit 85 today. Average high is 86, so we're close. 65 was the starting point this morning. Now we're at 76 and on our way down. East winds out there still. Had a wind gust up in the 20s much of the afternoon. All right, look at all the 70s we have. 69 in Blairsville. Now, with the cloud cover that we're seeing, I don't think we're going to see temperatures quite as crisp as what we had this morning. Had some 50s up in the mountains. I don't see that happening, but we're still going to be kind of pleasant. All around us is kind of some rain showers, and you're seeing that here right now, and that's going to continue through the night tonight and into your Thursday, but I don't think we get into the picture until long about Friday. So here we go. We go through Thursday, There's some clouds, heavier rain well down to our south, and I think that's where the heavy rain is going to stay. But then we start seeing some activity in here through the day on Friday. And I think anything south of I-20, you're going to get heavier downpours. North of I-20, more like just scattered light rain showers, patchy drizzle, clouds, and with all that, will keep the temperatures really, really mild. So for the race this weekend, yeah, Atlanta Motor Speedway is looking pretty nice for the activities heading down that way. And for tonight, we're looking at readings just falling down into the 60s. I think we're going to keep it in the 70s tomorrow, and then we'll talk about that rain on Friday. That's coming your way in just a few minutes.
All right, David, thanks. And coming up tonight, we continue our breaking news coverage and hear from a student who describes the terrifying moment when they learned of the tragedy while still in the classroom.
Plus, reaction tonight from a concerned parent trying to reach his son.
Preparing your home for a last-minute showing can be stressful.
Babe.
With a guaranteed offer from Mark Spain Real Estate, you can bypass the market and close in as little as 21 days.
Babe.
There are no showings, no open houses, no stress. Sell your home hassle-free.
Babe.
Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer on your home today and start packing.
Hey, it's Dr. Mike. New data finds that at ages 44 and 60, you end up aging more quickly from a biological point of view. Now, what can you do, folks? You need to limit your alcohol, get more sleep, make sure you exercise, and certainly don't smoke, and you will invest in your health 401k. I'm Dr. Mike Sirigliano with the Fox Medical Team.
Hey, I'm Heather Sullivan with Sullivan Smart Sense. Okay, we all know you can save money at the grocery store buying generic or store brands. But did you know you could save an average of 40%? CNET compared prices on 20 items and cut the bill from $125 to $75, and that's savings that can add up.
If you are relying on Amazon reviews to help you decide on a purchase, heads up. According to FakeSpot, the following categories are the most likely to have bogus or biased feedback: watches, Christmas decor, watch bands, sweaters, and pullovers. But the top spot for fake reviews? Slippers. FakeSpot says 71% on Amazon have fake reviews, with thousands of products and barely any name brands. I'm Steve Noviello. That's my 2 cents. Spend it wisely. To get the most out of your cell phone battery, consider shallow charging. Instead of draining your battery to zero, recharge it 50%. When you charge it up, stop at about 90%. Once a month, you should run it down to 5% and recharge so it can recalibrate its self-assessment. When charging is done, remove your phone from the charger. Electronics will age faster if they're left plugged in when fully charged. I'm Steve Noviello. That's my 2 cents. Spend it wisely.
We have practice drills, so everybody thought it was a drill, until we heard everything. We heard the announcements go on, and it was like, this is not a drill, this is a lockdown. Everybody was crying, everybody was on the floor, hugging each other and everything.
That was Appalachian High School student Alexandra Romero describing the moments when students learned of the deadly shooting in which 4 people lost their lives. The shooting at Appalachian High School is the country's 30th mass killing this year.
Well, that's according to the Associated Press and USA Today in partnership with Northeastern University.
Today, Attorney General Merrick Garland shared his condolences and pledged the DOJ's assistance.
I'm devastated for the families who have been affected by this terrible tragedy. The Justice Department stands ready to provide any resources or support that the Winder community needs in the days ahead.
Again, the 14-year-old gunman is now in police custody. He's charged with murder and is expected to be tried as an adult. As authorities continue to investigate, they're urging the public to come forward with any information. One parent we spoke with described the moment he called his son, who is a student at Appalachian High School.
I called my son to make sure he was okay.
God willing, he blessed us, so he's okay. And I had heard some stories, but I didn't know the validity of it. So I just wanted to make sure that I was real close to him just in case he was traumatized. It's a real horrible situation, and prayers to the families of those who have been affected by this horrible ordeal.
Well, today's shooting has prompted reaction from both sides of the political aisle.
President Joe Biden said in part what should have been a joyous back-to-school season in Winder, Georgia, has now turned into another horrific reminder of how gun violence continues to tear our communities apart. Students across the country are learning how to duck and cover instead of how to read and write. We cannot continue to accept this as normal. At her campaign rally in New Hampshire today, Vice President Kamala Harris addressed the Appalachia High School shooting, expressing her condolences and also calling for stricter gun control.
This is just a senseless tragedy on top of so many senseless tragedies. And it's just outrageous that every day in our country, in the United States of America, that parents have to send their children to school worried about whether or not their child will come home alive. It's senseless. It is. We've got to stop it.
Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump also responded to the tragedy on Truth Social, posting, "Our hearts are with the victims and loved ones of those affected by the tragic event in Winder, Georgia. These cherished children were taken from us far too soon by a sick and deranged monster." Former Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords is a leader in the movement to end gun violence in America.
She is the founder of the National Gun Violence Prevention Organization. Giffords survived a mass shooting in 2011 when a gunman opened fire at a constituent event in Tucson, Arizona, where 6 people were killed.
Since that shooting, Giffords has become an advocate for gun reform. Giffords posted this statement in response to the tragedy at Appalachia High School. Students deserve to feel safe at school. They deserve to live without fear of gun violence. Sadly, that is not the case in the United States. Gun violence is the #1 killer of children. Only 1 month into the school year, the community of Winder, Georgia, has been struck by a preventable tragedy. My heart goes out to those senselessly killed and injured today, their families, and the entire Winder community that will feel the impact and trauma of this shooting for years to come. Again, that from former Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords.
Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens also released a statement saying, "My prayers are with the high school students, staff, and families affected by the senseless act of violence in Winder, Georgia." He said, "May God comfort the victims and their loved ones in the difficult days ahead." Also, new Falcons starting quarterback Kirk Cousins shared his thoughts while speaking at a press conference this afternoon.
We went out to walk through today, and Raheem notified us of the shooting that took place not too far from here, and so that was pretty sobering. Our prayers, praying for the families that are affected, the school, the community, and it's a tough deal. I'm gonna go home tonight and hug and kiss my kids.
And we'll continue to keep following the latest developments as they unfold in that ongoing story. Still ahead tonight, battleground states are a toss-up in the presidential race, where the candidates stand as the election quickly approaches.
Plus, a fire department and community in Georgia remember the life of Battalion Fire Chief Chris Eddy, who was killed in the line of duty.
Preparing your home for a